And the other week when I was in Georgia, I just got to leave a day early to go to Alabama. So I didn't want to pop in on him a day early, so I didn't tell him. And he knew it.
It's on.
Good evening. Welcome to the 2021 Spring Hope Municipal Candidate Forum. Thank you all for being here this afternoon, this evening. I'm Corey Friedman, editor of the Enterprise, and I'll get the ball rolling here with a few preliminary questions before we open the floor to our audience, because that's the main event we're all here for. At the table here are candidates for Spring Hope's Mayor and Board of Commissioners who will be introducing themselves to you momentarily. I'd like to thank the Town of Spring Hope for providing the community building for tonight's forum. I'd also like to recognize a few of my colleagues who are here with us today. Kevin Zepsauer there in the back is our president and publisher. Allison Pridgeon is our media services manager, and for those of you who don't know what that title means, she is in charge of our graphic design team. Allison and her team design our newspapers, including the Enterprise, and she has worked here for the Enterprise under Ken Ripley and is now in charge of the folks designing the Enterprise, so she's come full circle for us. And Lindell Kay in the back taking pictures is our news editor at the Enterprise. We don't want to forget him or leave him out. This forum is designed to connect the voters with the candidates who would like to serve as their representatives in local government. While much attention is focused on the President, Congress, and even the state legislature, the Spring Hope Board of Commissioners makes decisions that affect town residents each and every day. We believe it's important for Spring Hopians to know their mayor and city commissioners and feel that they have the information to make wise decisions about our leadership when they step into the voting booth. I've learned from previous candidate forums that I've been involved with that my presence here at the podium is simply a formality. Voters come prepared with insightful questions, and the more time that I speak, the less time we have for audience Q&A, which is really the heart and soul of this event. So I'm going to keep my remarks brief. For that reason, I'm going to limit myself to 3 opening questions on behalf of the Enterprise, and then we'll open the floor to public Q&A. Each candidate will receive 1 minute to make an opening statement and to answer each question, whether from the podium or from the audience. I'll be keeping time on a stopwatch and asking candidates to conclude their remarks when time has expired. And if candidates don't get the hint, we have a buzzer. So, without further ado or further preamble, we'll begin with opening statements in the order of candidates seated from left to right. So, at the very to the left, if you want to start us off, I will hand you.
Corey, can you start at that side?
Yeah, we'll go from right to left. Why not? All right. From right to left, here are our candidate introductions. Yes, sir.
Tony Jeffries, live at 107 McLean Street. I don't really have an opening statement. I just am thankful to. I look forward to have the opportunity, if voted in, to help the town in the near future. I'm excited for the challenge. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Don't even have to buzz me.
Kyle Pritchard, thank you all for being out here tonight. We've got a lot on our plate to handle once this election is over. As you know, water is my top priority, but there's lots of things in town that I want to work on, and I look forward to bringing the community together and helping all of you work on those things and accomplish the goals that you have set forth for your town. It's going to be fun and exciting, and I appreciate you guys electing me as your mayor.
Eric Gainey, been a resident here at Spring Hope for about 2 years. I just really want to serve the community, and the best way I think I can serve the community is by offering my skills and experience to help make decisions with the town board and with whoever ends up as mayor elected.
My name is Jason Himmelwright. I've lived here about 15 years now, 16. Had no desire to do anything like this ever, but I felt like things were just gotten to a point where somebody had to stand up, and I decided to do that. And my goals is just like Kyle and Tony is to concentrate on water and stuff like that, but also the little issues that seem to get missed along the way because it's just not on everybody's radar.
My name is Ricky Tucker. I'm a lifelong resident of this area. I've lived in Spring Hope since 1978. This was my first time being a commissioner. I will say the last 4 years have been interesting. I have learned a lot, still a lot to learn. And there's a lot that we have to accomplish. Water is one of the big ones, but there's a lot of other issues that we've got to tackle in the next, not just the next 4 years, but the next several years. Probably several boards down the road will have to tackle some of it because the issues didn't get this way overnight. We're not going to fix them overnight. Thank you.
My name is Brent Cole. I'm a current commissioner here in Spring Hope, obviously running for commissioner again. So I've lived in Spring Hope. I've been a Spring Hopian for the majority of my 53 years. In town for, I guess, the last 8 or so, an in-town resident. A lot like Mr. Himmelwright, my family was very political. I did not have the desire to get into the political arena. However, 4 years ago, I felt the need when there was a lack of people running for the office to step in and be a voice for the citizens. And I've tried to be that voice, and that's what I would like to continue to be. We've accomplished a lot of things in the past 4 years as well as before. And I'd like to see that ball to keep rolling in the direction that it is. I know it seems like a lot of things are in baby steps, and with COVID and the different things that have happened, some of that has hindered it. Politics in general, from state government, we've applied for a lot of grants and things that have not come our way. I'm the first one to get buzzed. Thank you, everybody.
I thought it was going to be me. All right, my name is Prudence Wilkins, and I am running for mayor, but I am a current town commissioner. I'm going to read off my paper so I can do it in a minute. So I have a background in legal and finance. I am the co-owner of Ray's Muscle Max Queen Status Fitness, which is located here in Spring Hope. I'm also the president visionary of Embracing Me, Inc., a nonprofit also out of Spring Hope. I'm a graduate of the Advanced Leadership Program with UNC Chapel Hill School of Government. I've served on a number of boards, Guilford County, Raleigh, and now Spring Hope. I have spent the majority of my time while being in Spring Hope trying to revitalize this community and bringing different initiatives to this community. Like my colleague Brent stated, we've done a lot, but there's a lot that actually needs to be done. So I hope that you guys give me an opportunity to continue to serve you in a mayor capacity.
Good evening, I'm Drew Griffin, a lifelong area resident. I've been a town resident for about 20 years. I've been very fortunate and would like to thank the people in this town that are here and other people for the opportunity to have served on the board for the last 12 years. Prior to that, I served on the planning board, and it's a real honor to be able to do that. We have accomplished some things in that time period. It's very slow and frustrating sometimes in government to get things accomplished, but we have done some good things, park improvements, CMAC projects to improve the sidewalks and the streets. We've made some improvements in the water and the sewer. There are a lot of things that we've got to still do, and the only way to be able to accomplish those things and reach the goals that all of us as residents have is to work together and communicate, and you all let us know the things you want done. It's always been a challenge to balance our budget with the needs, and it will continue.
All right, thank you all for those opening statements. I enjoyed learning a little bit more about each of you. So I've just got 3 preliminary questions on behalf of the enterprise, and then we'll open it up to public Q&A. So our first question for all of the candidates is on the value of experience. Could you tell me if you think it's important to have new leaders elected to bring in new ideas, or is the institutional knowledge of returning commissioners more important? And we'll just go in reverse order since we're passing the mic around the table, and that'll be a good way to vary the order of speakers.
I think you need a balance of both. It's very important to have some experience on the board or in a business or any organization, but it's also always very good to have new ideas. And so I would say that we welcome new ideas from the residents and from other people because to know what's going on. So you have to balance that experience with the new ideas and make those things work together in unison to accomplish the goals that everybody would like to see Spring Hope move forward. So I think we need a balance of both.
I would also agree that we do need a balance of both, but I also feel when it comes to having a balance of both, we also need to listen to what the community wants. Whether you have a balance of both, whether you have new, whether you have experience. It's about listening to the community and bringing their ideas forth, and then as a board discussing those and being able to work together as a team. That's going to be the key to being an effective leadership in a town, being a cohesive team, no matter what experience you have.
So I'm going to kind of follow suit here and say a balance of both. However, what I am going to add is that Spring Hope is at a critical time right now with the opening for a town manager. And I think that the Board of Commissioners, where we have got a lot of things going, a lot of things obviously behind the scenes, we need that, our focus needs to be on the town manager. I think that would flow better with the current board that I call kind of involved with and know what's going on. But in addition to that, where we can invite the new ideas is all the various boards that we do have outside of the Commissioners Board, which would be the Downtown Development Board, the Planning Board, Board of Adjustments. We have branched out in the Downtown Development Board to the Garden Club, which all these things have been fantastic. And so I think there is obviously avenues for people to volunteer and to get their ideas heard and brought to us so that we can have a combination of both new ideas as well as, you know, a historical knowledge, tribal knowledge, however you want to put it. So
It's time.
There's not a lot of ways you can answer this question. They're all going to be about the same, I believe. I think there has to be a balance. There is a learning curve to this job. I think all of us got on the board originally because we had a vision. We had things we wanted to try to get done. Some things we were able to get done, some things we couldn't. But I think a balance is good. And I guess ultimately it's going to be up to y'all as to whether you think the current board has done a good job or whether it needs to be replaced. So it really falls into y'all's hands as to what you think. But we all want the best for Spring Hope.
Obviously, pretty much the same answer. You need some experience, but what it really matters is, what does it matter to you all? You got to look at each candidate and say, did that experience, did that work for you all? Did it work for you all? The new ideas that come in, is that the ideas you're looking for? It's what you want. And you have to look at each candidate and start, you have 3 choices to pick from. It's up to you guys.
Disadvantage of being somewhere stuck in the middle. All the great answers are already taken. But I concur, it really takes a balance, to balance between experience and the balance between new ideas. New ideas will elicit a different direction sometimes and a better direction. But what it will boil down to is how much feedback whichever board is elected gets from the community and the ideas that y'all have and the direction that y'all want to go. And that's the responsibility of the board and the city management is to take the town in the direction that the town wants to go. So the key element to this town government is going to be voice of the citizens.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure, I'd be glad to. Is it important to have new leaders elected to bring in new ideas, or is the institutional knowledge of returning commissioners more important?
New ideas, most definitely new ideas. Like Ricky Tucker said, it's a learning curve. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot we don't know. So it's a learning experience the entire time. But the town needs new ideas, and there's an opportunity for the town to get a new communication platform in place. I think all the all the candidates up here have mentioned that it's about you guys. So if we could create a way that's easy for you to get involved where you want to get involved in, a way that's easy for you guys to give us your ideas, then the experience that we have is what will help us turn those ideas, those visions, and those dreams into reality. So a lot of ideas that we're going to get from you guys are going to be up here, some here, and then it's going to be our job to turn those into reality and take the town in the direction that you want it to go. I'd love to sit up here and tell you all about my experience, but my personal opinion is that ideas are more important than the experience right now in the position this town's in.
Well, I ditto with everything they said, but I will say this, I think as time goes along, different issues come to the top. They surface at different times as you go through growth in the history of your town. And I think when you've got a situation that's come to the forefront as infrastructure has come, I think at that time, if you have someone that might have experience in that area, I think it would be wise at that point that that might help the town get through the next years of what's taken place. A better understanding of what's going on, how to handle things, what to do. And I think a lot of times issues detect what a town needs. I know we're all for you guys, but still, you're probably even looking for direction when it comes to things too. So I think the issues that are presenting themselves at the top, more experience might be helpful.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for those thoughtful, insightful responses. Our next question, Spring Hope contracts with a private company called EnviroLink to provide public works services. And we have reported in the enterprise on intermittent complaints about work not being performed or not meeting residents and commissioner standards, and some of the feedback from the audience might be reflective of that. So the question is, should the town continue outsourcing its public works to EnviroLink, seek a new contractor, or consider hiring its own public works staff?
I'm trying to be correct as I can. EnviroLink needs to go, I think. I know we need certificates, we need all that kind of stuff. I think the town needs to bring it back into their own hands. I think we need to start cutting our own grass, picking up our own limbs, starting our own maintenance program, small, work bigger. I think there's so much that we can do. You know, we don't have a lot of money. That's understandable. I understand that. And I think but we can, if we do more things with crews, we can do better than what we even do with I've heard many people say that, well, if we buy all the equipment and all this stuff happens, we're going to be more. Well, there's no doubt about that. But we don't have to take the whole thing at once. But I think we need to bring it back to the town. I think the town needs to have people that take pride in what their town looks like, not in somebody we're paying to do it. They have no skin in the game. They're just doing their job. But I think the people, we need to do it. I think it needs to be, and I hate to say this, what I've seen with EnviroLink and how they work and continue to work, they got time.
I've written a lot of contracts, and I've negotiated a lot of contracts. And the real problem is that people are just going to get away with what they can get away with. You know, when the cat's away, the mice are going to play. So the root of the issue is the contract itself. There's no financial penalties for not performing the jobs as the commissioners, the residents may see to their standard or in a timely manner. There's other loopholes that EnviroLink can get through to make their life easier and make it harder for us. So it really falls back down to the contract itself. The company's got a lot of room for improvement, most definitely, without a doubt. That company's got a lot of room for improvement on how they train their employees, how they motivate their employees, how they hold their employees accountable, without doubt. But it started here at the Commissioners Board. We could have wrote a better contract.
Well, I agree with Tony. With my background in water infrastructure, having worked for county water department, fixing leaks countywide, being on call, fixing those leaks, I completely agree with Tony. We have to replace EnviroLink. They are a thorn in our side. Anybody that has a contract and they can't fulfill their end of the bargain, they display their character in their business practices. And I don't want to do business as a town with someone who don't have the character to fulfill their end of the bargain on the contract. and look for loopholes to get around problems. So I would be actively looking for ways to fund, to bring in our own crews and utilize our own people and put pride back in Spring Hope. Because the bottom line is EnviroLink will never take care of the town the way we will.
I agree with what they say. I think we need to start taking small bites out of environment, out of EnviroLink, and slowly move them out of the process. If it means start with one truck and some mowers and weed eaters and a couple employees, that's where we start. And you'll see how much better it'll be. And like Kyle said, it's the way the contracts were set up. There's no penalty. They can do whatever they want, and we've seen that. So that's also part when you vote. A lot of what goes on with this board is disagreements and how they vote. I think with Tony and everybody else with the new, you're going to see that you're going to have a united front with the board commissioners voting, how they're going to vote.
I think everybody will agree that when the town of Spring Hope did away with its maintenance crew many years ago, it was probably one of the worst decisions the town has made in a long time. That was something that was done pretty much overnight, but it's not going to get fixed overnight. We don't have the finances to do it. We have issues with EnviroLink. We have a contract with them. But I deal with contracts with the state every day. A contract does not work as well as most people think it does. If you have a breach of the contract on either side, then we have to discuss court issues to get it fixed. How many years will that drag out? How much money will it take? I agree, we probably need to replace them. But if you start, what are you going to do if you're left holding the bag if EnviroLink just says, oh, by the way, we'll go ahead and let you have the contract?
So as far as EnviroLink goes, I've given my fair share of grief to all of the EnviroLink people, both in the board meetings as well as in private meetings with their leadership. I addressed a lot of things that Mr. Pritchard talked about as far as their accountability. Being on the board, we are in the contractual issues. We are apprised to a lot of legal things that we're not allowed to discuss, that we're discussing. We have closed sessions in order to address those things. So we can't address those publicly until the time arises. However, what I will say is that a change needs to happen. I can't sit here and say we can replace them or we should replace them, but I think they've got to change, and we've got to change in how we hold them accountable, and they have to change in their, let's say, and how quickly they respond and their sense of urgency when it comes to the town of Spring Hope. But things do have to change. Changes are discussed all the time. And I think we'll see in the very near future some changes that do happen.
All right, unfortunately, being on the board now, I can't really go into some of the details as well as far as EnviroLink, but if you've came to some of the meetings, you've actually seen how I'm also with EnviroLink. I haven't been very happy with the work that EnviroLink does, especially with our cemeteries. When you have a family go out there and there's a grave open, that's a problem. That's a big problem. So I do think that we do need to start that process with probably filtering some things away. We also need to make sure that their processes are intact and that they are following their processes and their SOPs, which is standard procedures, that we're really holding them accountable for things that they may end up keeping due to some type of certifications and things that we may use here in Spring Hope, or that we will need in Spring Hope. So it's more so just holding them accountable, holding them to the fire.
Brent and Prudence made some very good points, and the town residents have made good points about EnviroLink. Brent and I and the rest of the board are very well aware that there are a lot of issues within Envirolink. And as Brent said, there are things about that being board members, we really can't discuss in an open forum. But everybody is aware that there are some issues and some things that need to be addressed. And we are working on trying to address those and hold them accountable for their actions and their inaction. And there are a lot of different ways that we could possibly, as a town, rectify some of those problems with Envirolink. And we are working on that, and I feel certain that everyone on this panel is very interested in that and has the best interest of this town at heart, and will continue that no matter who is fortunate enough to win election. I think everybody up here will work to make sure that there are improvements with the things that Envirolink takes care of.
Thank you all for those responses. Our final question on behalf of the newspaper involves the Town of Spring Hope's Facebook page. So the town often posts news and announcements on the page, and the page was closed to comments in the spring because Jay Kim, who's our former town manager, said that users were posting misinformation about the safety of town's drinking water. As the Enterprise has reported, citing a UNC School of Government professor, the town is acting within the law. It's not obligated to provide the comment feature, but our question is it necessary to continue to keep comments closed? Should the town's Facebook page be a dialogue between officials and residents, or should it be a monologue where only the town's message is shared?
Well, as someone that doesn't use Facebook, maybe I'm the worst person to kick off the answer to this question. But yes, the comments were shut down back in the spring. The details behind that, it's been quite some time, but there was a lot of negativity going back and forth on the Facebook page. And so it became very time consuming for the town employees to try to monitor that and keep if I remember right, there were personal attacks against the commissioners and the commissioners' families, and there was ugly, uncalled for language being used on Facebook. And you make a very good point. The town's not required to maintain a Facebook page. Maybe we do need to have communication with the residents, all the area residents. But when a platform like that becomes to be something that people are using to make personal attacks, then we don't have the time for our town employees to sit there and monitor all the comments that come in. So it was just cut off.
If Facebook is going to be used as an attack mechanism, which there are some people who are still using Facebook as an attack mechanism on people's families that have nothing to do with this election, then the comments don't need to be open. I mean, that's just my opinion. If we're going to use Facebook to truly be proactive, provide the town with feedback, then yes, then it would be feasible to open up those Facebook comments so that people are able to comment. But to be negative, I mean, if we have people who are going to be moving into this town, think about what they're going to see on Facebook. Do we really want to give off that we have negativity running all through this town with the comments that were being placed on Facebook and the attacks that will be taking place, or that was taking place on a town's Facebook page? It was uncalled for, and it should not have been happening by adults.
So with the turning off the comments, that has been discussed recently about possibly turning them back on, even to the extent that the staff went in and found that they could apply filters for profanity, which is ridiculous that they had even looked for that. And that there was a discussion of they could screen for where citizens began to attack each other on the page with nothing to do with the town or the commissioners, which that did happen. And so in my response, it was that it's a shame that the majority of the citizens have to be punished for the actions of the few. And unfortunately, we can't pick and select who we block. So it has to be all or none. And that being the case, I agree that they should remain turned off because, as Drew mentioned, we can't afford to pay these ladies or gentlemen that are in the office to screen Facebook of all things for profanity and threats and things like that of that nature. It just should not happen. Now, if
It's time.
There's really not a lot else I can add to what's been said, other than, yes, it got very ugly, and it was just a few that did it. But when it gets to the point where you're using social media to attack people, and to tell lies, and to threaten people, which is illegal, by the way, there's no place for it. You can turn on the TV almost every morning and you'll hear some incident in a school where bullying is going on through social media. That's all this turned out to be, is folks who use social media to say something they wouldn't come and say to us in our face. So it doesn't bother me that it got cut off if we're going to use it that way. I would love to have it back and use it constructive. And if we get constructive criticism, that's fine. But a lot of it got ugly, and there was no reason for it.
Was there a problem with the Facebook page before the water issues? I think a lot of it has to do with the frustrations that people had, because we weren't hearing anything from town hall. I personally didn't feel like I saw any leadership. No real answers, no real time frames, nothing. So yeah, I was frustrated. I was on there. I don't think I was being real abusive, unless it was Jim Jackson, but that's a different story. But no, I just think you have to look at the timeline. Was there any problems with Facebook before the water issues? And then people started looking at our town government. That's why I ran. That's probably why Eric ran. That's why Kyle's running. That's why Tony's running. We're like, enough's enough. It's time to do some different things. Figure out, communication's a big problem with this town hall. I mean, do you know what's going on with the board meeting before it happens? They say, well, the paperwork's there, this is there. It's not.
I really think that the Facebook comments could be turned back on with the filters put in place for profanity and type things. The problem we ran into with the Facebook comments was because of all the negativity. People posting information without doing adequate research and knowing what they're talking about before they say what they said. And then it morphed into personal attacks, which was really uncalled for. I understood what was going on with the Board of Recs the whole time. I've been there, done that. And so it became a problem when people were putting out bad information without doing adequate research and doing adequate research on the people they were talking bad about. So they could be turned back on as long as we could be proactive and try to be unified in building up each other and the town. So that's the only way we're going to progress and move forward. If we're continuing downtrodden everybody and beating everybody down, then where we're going to be at.
Facebook comments. No one should be censored. That's just unacceptable. It's uncalled for. People should be able to say what they want to. They have a freedom of speech. So we shouldn't silence anyone on Facebook, but for some people, Facebook's the only way they can get their voice out there. It's the only way they feel like they can be heard. So for a lot of people, Facebook is the means for their voice to get out there. The root problem is that citizens don't feel like they're being listened to. And Facebook is a place where they can go and make their opinions and their voices public for other people to hear and for the board to hear. If you want negative comments to end, then you've got to give the people what they want. Touch on being proactive, get ahead of the problems, prevent negative comments. We have to create a better communication platform, town halls like Buddy did, ways to listen to the town problems and fix them and be proactive. If they didn't have anything to complain about, then they wouldn't be going after you. And there's always going to be something to complain about. There's always going to be problems without doubt. But if we had better communication, then we wouldn't have those negative comments.
Definitely. session.
I know. It's loud. Oh, it's loud.
I won't be deaf after this session. No, you're all right.
No, I agree.
If you hold it here, you can't hear it, and then if you hold it there.
My 1 minute's going now.
All right, we're going to restart his time, but we'll recognize him to speak.
No, I know. No, I agree. I would rather not hear negativity. I mean, I think it should be constructive. I think the voices should be heard, concerns. I think what I feel what Jason talked about, I think where this all, I would want to go to the root, what started it, why did it start? Why did we get to that point? And I think it's the town felt the communication wasn't there. They didn't know what was going on. They were in the dark. And I think then when people, that happens, then it builds and it comes to what it was. So I think the town hall meetings, I think we should have more of those. The community can come, talk to us, sit down, and it's not a governmental procedure of seconds and firsts or thirds or whatever they do. And you sit down and just talk about it. And I would hope that if we can come up with something like that, it would be constructive. Turn it back on, filters, but we don't, the negativity, we need to try to limit it.
All right, thank you all for your responses. So those three questions were all from me, and so we're going to move into public Q&A. So if you're in the audience and you would like to ask a question, please line up at the podium right here at the front. We're going to recognize one speaker at a time and one question at a time. Folks who have multiple questions, please limit yourself to one initially so that everyone who would like to address the candidates has the opportunity to do so. And if additional time remains, you can rejoin, retake the podium and ask your additional questions. And as people speak, we just ask the rest of the audience would try to remain silent. We do have some issues with the audio here. We've got some hot mics and some cold mics, and we just want to make sure that the candidates can hear the questions being asked of them and that everyone in the audience is able to hear the responses. So, yes, ma'am.
Before you start, can you just say who's running for what? I'm not clear on.
Sure. Would the candidates like to just pass the mic around and
Town Commissioner.
Call Pritchard, Mayor. Eric Gainey, Town Commissioner.
Jason Himmelwright, Town Commissioner?
Ricky Tucker, running for County Commissioner again, re-election.
Brent Cone, Town Commissioner.
Prudence Wilkins, I am running for mayor. However, I am a sitting town commissioner with my term not being up.
Drew Griffin, Town Commissioner.
All right, thank you all. And now we'll recognize our first audience member who'd like to ask a question.
Okay, my name is Edna Denton. I live here in Spring Hope. My question is to Kyle and your, you want to start my time over there? I don't know what's on.
Oh, no, we're not timing the audience, we're timing the candidates, so you can continue.
How did I do this thing?
Just hold it up about 2 to 3 inches.
Oh, my. Can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
My name is Edna Denton. I live here in Spring Hope. I've been back here 22 years after leaving. The question is to Kyle. If legal action is also a political action, the allegations sourced from official police and FBI records from state and federal court sources and public record have uncovered evidence of illegal activity, including drugs, assault on a police officer, possible domestic violence, and a DUI or maybe DUIs, loss of driver's license for a period of unspecific time, untruth spoken by you being 20 years or more, with experience with military contracts and hotel renovations at the current age of 37 years old. You have also stated that you would be a better candidate for Spring Hope because you aren't employed when 3 businesses have just been listed to your home address. And according to the Department of Insurance, you are not a licensed insurance agent, which you told me personally you were. Now, how do you propose to overcome the ethical concerns that it is going to take to unite Spring Hope on all of these issues and perception that any grant monies, new business owners, or individual investors may conclude?
Before you answer, Mr. Pritchard, I just want to say, because we had a pretty lengthy question here, we're going to give you 2 minutes to respond, and just in the interest of fairness, audience members can address any candidate individually, but we will give the other candidates the same opportunity to answer that question. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I did get a DUI. That was one of the best things that ever happened to me. It happened about 3 years ago, and I had started out kind of socially drinking, and it took a wrong turn, and I got a DUI. And as a result of that, my life completely turned around. The love of my life, which had been dating since 2002, Danielle, we finally got married. We had a child. Everything got stable with my relationship with God. We bought the house that she always wanted. So as far as the DUI, that was the biggest blessing, one of the biggest blessings that I've had in my life in the past decade. As far as I think you mentioned the hotel experience. So 37 years old. When I was 16 years old, I was scrubbing toilets in a hotel. And I worked my way up from housekeeping, front desk, assistant management, regional director, and development. And so, yes, I do have 20 years experience in the hotel business. As far as licensed insurance broker, you need to recheck your information. I'm licensed with the state of North Carolina.
And life insurance?
What's that?
Insurance? Life
Yes.
insurance?
Yes, like PNC, which also includes life insurance.
I know. I'm a
Property and
insurance
casualty, which
agent,
includes life insurance.
and I pulled the record.
And so I think, not sure if I answered all of that. DUI was the best thing that happened to me. I'm licensed, as you said. Oh, you mentioned my multiple businesses. Synapse Investment Group is the company that I use for real estate investments and stock market investments. Extreme Promotions and Races LLC is a company I use to do events, a lot of them charity. And then East Coast Insurance LLC is the company that my insurance brokerage is under. And they were all recently switched to 211 East Nash when I moved there. But if you look at the dates, they've been in existence for a while now, all of them. Was that everything?
No, the assault on the police officer?
Oh, that was, when I got my DUI, I'm not gonna lie, I was really drunk. And I had no idea what they were telling me to do. I'm not even gonna lie, there's no reason to lie about it, right? Why lie about it? And so, and so they just kind of, I wasn't convicted with that. I was not convicted with assault on an officer. It was actually resisting arrest. It wasn't assault. It's just because I couldn't comply because I didn't know what I was doing. I was drunk. No other way to lie about it.
That's
But
time.
my question is, how are you?
Hey, ma'am, I'm sorry, we do have to move along, but if you want to ask additional questions after other folks have had the opportunity, that'd be fine. And just in the interest of fairness, would any other candidates wish to address those questions? You can defer if you like, you don't have to, but we do want to provide everyone the equal opportunity to speak.
I mean, I can't say for me, I don't need the mic, I talk loud, everybody knows I talk loud, but for me, I've had my background pulled as well, and me personally, I don't have a background. I don't have nothing on my background whatsoever. I work for a major financial institution. I work in risk, I work in legal. So I cannot have anything on my background, or I would not be allowed to work for a major financial institution like I do. So I wanted to point that out since my opponent, addressed his. I wanted to point that out, that mine is clean. And if anybody would like to see it, I'll be happy to pull it. My company pulls it every 6 months, so.
I'll just touch on background in general. I am a federal law enforcement officer with the Bureau of Prisons. My background check gets done every 5 years, and it is very detailed. In fact, I might list one of you fine residents on the next one so they can come talk to you.
All right. Next question from the audience.
Hello everyone, I'm Jacqueline Mills. I've been a resident of Spring Hope all my life, other than when I moved and relocated with my husband at the time.
Use the mic.
Excuse me?
She
Oh,
can't.
you need the
She's
mic,
here.
okay. So my question is about the water, number one. It seems that we did not have any water issues until the Bojangles and now the 2 new subdivisions started coming in town. I frequently go to take a shower or a bath. The water is cloudy, it's muddy, or I go and I'm surprised and there is no water. So now, before all this construction was coming, it didn't seem to be as big of a problem, or I didn't notice it as much. So how are you guys going to rectify some of this now that we have these 2 major subdivisions coming, and a Bojangles, and I guess some other things are coming as well? So what is the plan now? Are we gonna suffer more because of the new construction? Or are you gonna, I mean, you're talking about money, I get it, EnviroLink, they probably are not doing their job. I think going back to hiring some people in the community so they can learn the community and all that, I think that's a great idea. But in the meantime, if we can't even afford to get hire people to do the job in the town, how are we going to have water expansion? How are we going to have water flow for the people that's already existing in the communities here in Spring Hope?
I don't need a mic. One thing about it, you said that this construction started, seemed like the other problems. I can say this, the breaks that you had, that wasn't part of the issues. It's just, it's reality. The system is old and it's gonna start to fail. That's reality. It's gonna start to happen more and more. Those constructions, they're not gonna affect what's happening with the pipe cracking. And so, but the thing I had an opportunity to talk to Ms. Barnes at the Pumpkin Festival. They're getting ready to vote. She hopes they vote within the next week and a half. I spoke to her about 30 minutes. They're gonna vote in the week and a half, and those funds, she feels that were put into the budget that we may get. When we start, we gotta start with valves. You gotta start with the valves. We gotta be able to shut the system down. Right now, we can't shut it down. EnviroLink twisted the valve off a week ago.
Yeah.
Their man twisted it off, go down to Branch and Pine, it's leaking right now, and it'll leak forever. So we've got to start with valves. We gotta get the right valves so we can control the city, and when we control the city, then we can start working.
Yeah, just to piggyback off Tony, the breaks had nothing to do with new construction. None of that was even tied in at the moment when those breaks happened. Like Tony said, most of the system is well over 50 years old. You've got steel cast iron pipes running up and down Nash Street. You got different types of pipes in different areas, and each of those, they're gonna break.
Can the town afford to repair all of that?
To repair all of it, we can make repairs as they pop up. The problem is the infrastructure.
So Band-Aiding, you're basically Band-Aiding.
Correct, but in order to fix the infrastructure as a whole, it's going to take, starting with valves for one, so we can shut those systems off, but it has to be strategically done. When we get the money from the state, and if we get these grants, we can start replacing sections of that infrastructure at a time strategically, hitting the biggest problem areas first. And the new construction isn't gonna be that big of a drain on the system.
Really?
We have good water flow from the wells that we do have, plenty of water. I will say that this new construction is going to cap off our sewage, our ability to draw that sewage out and process it. So we're gonna have to look at addressing that once this new construction is completed. So that's another project further down the road that's gonna have to happen.
Time?
So can I ask another question?
We're limiting it to one question. We need to give everyone an opportunity to answer your first question.
So, the answer, yeah, that's correct. The 2 subdivisions had not even been started yet, and Bojangles probably was tied in shortly after, but nothing to do with it. However, the reason, so we've applied for grants. We were denied 3 years in a row because we didn't meet criteria. We finally got that. We've spent the last year developing, with an engineering firm, collected a lot of information. But with these new subdivisions, and they're gonna come in Part of their deal is they have to provide their own infrastructure, which is the water lines and the sewage and all that. And then once they're completed, they donate it back to the town. So in turn, that gives us the revenue from those accounts. So there's money coming from those, in addition to grants and the money coming that Ms. Barnes got for us, $3.7 million. $28 million to replace the entire water system. That's not a dent, right? So we need these other homes to be able to bring in the money to afford it. We've tried to survive for decades with 1,300 to 1,600 citizens with about 600 water accounts, and because of that lack of money, we haven't been able to upkeep with the water. So that's the reason that we want these to come in and actually be a help.
So I can ask another question later?
If everyone else has had the opportunity.
Let me add also into that, we're in the process of trying to bring another well online that was abandoned several years ago. So we are attempting to get another well online, which will help.
Okay. Thank you.
And Brent and Ricky pretty much said everything that the current board is actually doing. So I would just sentiment with them that we know that there's water issues, because when we get up, our water gone too. So we experience the same things that you guys experienced when the 3 days was out. Yeah, I was a little upset too, and I'm one of the leadership, and I was a little upset too. But we experienced the same thing. But trust and believe that that is not something that we as a leadership, we sit on that. Those are things that maybe you may not hear us discuss that, but those are things that we actually do discuss.
Yeah, I can't really expound any more on what's already been said by Brent and Prudence. We are aware of the issues. It is an old system. Anything you use is going to break as you're using it. The new development will make their own infrastructure and donate it to the town and create more money for us through those accounts. But yeah, quite simply, all we can really afford to do is band-aid the system, and that's really all any town does with its infrastructure is band-aid it as best they can. You don't see towns, even cities like Raleigh, go in and replace their whole infrastructure system. It's just not feasible. So yes, there are a lot of things that we need to address and improve on, and we are working on that with the assessment of the system so we can know where some of the most critical areas are that need the first attention on maintenance. Once that project is finished, then we will start addressing the maintenance on the portions that need it, that most critical to needing maintenance.
10 seconds. The squeaky wheel always gets the grease. I've been involved with projects that included infrastructure in other communities, and you make enough relationships with the elected officials at the state and higher up levels, you call them enough, you email enough, the squeaky wheel will get the grease. It's proven time and time again. Even as Lou Harvey, the mayor of Middlesex, has done a great job at being a squeaky wheel and getting money. It works. We just gotta keep pushing them, and we will get the money. Keep pushing them.
For me, it's what have we learned from it? Have we purchased extra parts, common denominator parts? After a hole's been dug that we're gonna pay for, that's a perfect time to swap a valve out. Why don't we have extra parts? Tony said there's a common denominator. Every time we dig a hole, the valve's right there, it's time to swap it out right then and there. What have we learned? What has changed since these breaks? Nothing. We have Environment come in, maybe charge us twice because they didn't fix it right the first time. How much money are we actually saving? Those are the real questions. They're not being answered.
Who hasn't had the opportunity to answer that question yet? So everyone had the chance? Okay. So one quick housekeeping item. If you could pass the mic down to the right side of the table. We don't want to skip around. We do want to go in order. That way I can ensure that everyone has the chance to speak and that everyone gets equal time. I'm not able to keep track of it when we skip around. If you can project and you don't need the mic, you don't have to use it, but just treat it like a talking stick. Whoever's speaking has the microphone at their seat. All right, next public question.
Good evening. Good My name is Jonelle Richardson, and I'm president of Faith Christian Ministries. Anybody hear me? Faith Christian Ministries. And our problem is right down the street, 205 Southwest Main Street, the old collapsed building right down there. About 11 months, soon to be a year, that wall fell over on 203 West Main Street and on 109 Ash Street. The town placed a vacate order on the damaged building, deeming it unsafe. The town put the responsibility and the control of the removal of the unsafe structure on the owner of the building that fell. The owner of the dilapidated building has been given months and different opportunities to provide the town with a plan for removal of the damaged structure. But we don't believe he's done so for us. Okay, my question to the board is, what will you do, or can you do, to help us get this building, get the vacate order so we can get in our building? We are out of our building. Faith Christian Ministries has been out of the building for almost a year now because of this other building that's on our building. We've lost 2 other businesses because of this building. So what we want to know is, how can we get back in our building? We've been trying, we've been having meetings with the owner, it's not going anywhere. So what would you do to help us get back into our building?
No, it doesn't matter who's currently on the board, we're actually just gonna follow the mic down the table.
It's going to be hard for me to answer it since I'm not a commissioner, but I would say this. I think if not listening at the last board meeting with the code enforcement now that's been set up, which I think, I'll give the kudos to the board because they've had set this up. I believe he's now involved, if I'm not mistaken. And I think it's going through the process, the legal process that it has to go through. I hate to say that. I know it got in the lawyer's hands. I think I go back again to why to get to that point, and that's what I think this court enforcement is excellent to catch these issues before they happen. But I think it's in the process, and I can't answer any more than that.
Spring Oak needs a National Register District. That's going to help with some of the ordinances with these old buildings downtown. Buildings need liability insurance, so when something like this comes up, if the owner doesn't have money, the insurance can help pay. Code enforcement to prevent hazards when possible. Inspection of suspect buildings, get the county involved. When a tragedy like this does happen, create a timeline. Don't just let the building owner give the excuses, don't have funds. Create a timeline, and you have the codes in place. You have the ordinances in place. I've seen it happen before in towns that I've been involved with. You give them a timeline, they don't meet it, the town can abate the issue, town takes ownership, they can sell the property. It's possible if you put the right ordinances in place to protect this. It's a hazard, it's a liability for the town, it's a safety issue, and other businesses are losing unknown amounts of revenue because of it. So just a little bit of planning and forethought could have prevented all this.
Hey, Mr. Richardson, I want to thank you and y'all's ministries for helping us out when we did move to town. Thank you very much. When I found out what happened to the building, I did some research, just asking questions, because I was just as upset about it as you are. And I was trying to find out why no one was being held accountable. And through talking to several different board members and other people that were involved, it's in that legal process. Unfortunately, the town, there wasn't anything in current law or in ordinance that could let the town really do much more than what they're doing now. And so, with Kyle, we're going to have to look at addressing those issues and requiring those liability insurances so stuff like this doesn't happen in the future.
I've been barking on Facebook and trying to get a message out about a lot of these old buildings. And you'll find there's a common denominator of who owns a lot of these buildings downtown that are allowed to just sit there and rot. There's no interest in renting them out, doing anything with them. They just get worse. And personally, I think it's allowed to go on because of who owns the properties. And I think we've definitely seen different rules for different people here in this town. So I'm one of those people, I don't care who you are or what you own or how long you lived here. The rules are the rules. That's just the way I am. I think the gentleman who owns the building now, I think there's more to it of who used to own the building and whose building is beside his building. There's a lot going on that's not being discussed because of those things. And it's time to trim that fat, time to get to the truth. And then we use this as a learning experience. Make sure this doesn't happen again. Or if it does happen again, people will be financially put in a spot where they can rebuild their businesses quick. Look at all the tax base that's probably been lost.
That's time.
I don't believe there's a lot that we can say at this point other than we're as disappointed as anybody else. We have tried on our end to do what we can, but because it has become a legal issue, from Faith Christian Ministries, there's not a lot we can talk about because it's tied up among the lawyers. But all we can do is hope that this comes to a conclusion shortly.
So this is true. There's not a lot of comments we could make early in the process after the wall fell. Some actions and some emails and things happened which invoked legal action, which basically tied our hands as a board to be able to speak publicly. You can see our attorney, he's sitting right back there. So it kind of tied our hands. But what we did do and what we have done is we fought long and hard, as Tony mentioned, to get the code enforcement. Once that person got in place that had that experience in situations like that, and he gave the update at the board meeting this past week, that he went in and he has now put this person in the process, and that he will, after 30 days, if it's non-comply, that he'll be able to transcribe an ordinance against that, and then we can help us and support us with the legal action that we need. So what we did do was try to set that precedent and get that code enforcement in here. We have that tool at our hands now. And so, yes, it has drug out way too long. Yes, I'm extremely disappointed in how this has gone.
Right, just like the current board members, my hands are tied, but I think you stopped by my house on Pine Street. Me and you had a conversation. You provided me with some documents. So I was ready and willing to help you until I got a call. Said I couldn't do nothing else. So my hands kind of got tied when the legal claims came in. So I'm just as upset that it's still going on, but because we had a very great conversation. But then I got kind of slapped on my hand a little bit.
Nothing really to add except just following their comments. We're all very disappointed about that, very disappointed it has turned out like it has and has lasted so long, but our hands are tied as far as what we can publicly comment on about that situation, except that fortunately we do now have ACE. They are pursuing getting that taken care of in a legal manner. So hopefully that will soon come to an end.
Thank you.
Thank you for those responses. Next, audience member who'd like to ask a question.
Real quick. Thank you, everyone. I like the comments that you all made earlier about experience versus time on the board and the new ideas. I can appreciate that. I appreciate having the new people on the board, new ideas. I love the ideas of always seeing something as a challenge or a learning experience. My question now is just simply if you are able to give us a kind of a timeline on what's happening at that lot with Bojangles. What is the timeline of getting things done, and what else might we expect to see come out there with the Bojangles as he cringes that I asked this question? Thank you.
So that was probably a question better answered by Bojangles. They are working on that as hard as they can. I do know from talking with them and other people involved with similar projects that part of the problem has been getting materials and getting people to come and do the work, and so it's taken them longer to get that facility up and going than they expected. But I think that's the case with a lot of construction going on right now. There are some other things in the works to
to be in that parcel. We had a group come before us. We annexed some land for a sign for a duck-through convenience store, which would be a nice new gas station convenience store for the area. There's some other long-range plans for that property that a lot of possibilities there, but at this point, those are the two things that are pretty much assured of going to happen. Just a matter of when they can get them all accomplished with time constraints on materials and workers and just getting the work done.
That's Tom.
Nothing to really add. He stated it all.
So as far as, and I laughed when you asked the question, the timeline started before I was a commissioner. When I was serving in the chamber, they were coming. They came and set up at the Pumpkin Festival, did a big display, and then they weren't coming. And then they changed their mind and they were coming again. And they did another display at the Pumpkin Festival. And finally, it all came to fruition and they started their process. And normally when you see the boat builder trailer, they have a kind of a rule that 90 days. In 90 days, they'll be open. Obviously, 90 days didn't happen. Supply chain issues, like Commissioner Griffin mentioned, are the issue. But yeah, I'm ready to have a biscuit. I'm getting tired of getting in line at Nashville. Or is that even worse, Zebulon? That's even more worse.
The only other thing I will add is I had a conversation with someone a while back. My understanding is this Bojangles is being built different than any of the other Bojangles. It is going to be a different design. And some of the material that they're using, and I think if any of you have been to Lowe's or Home Depot and tried to buy plywood or anything else here lately, it's hard to do. So that's the other thing I understand is their problem, is they're trying to build a different type of Bojangles. And it'll probably be the model for any Bojangles going forward for a while.
I'm not on the board, so I am not privy to anything that's being built there.
I'm with that guy.
So I guess we get to say whatever we want to for a minute. Timeline, the Bojangles, they answered that. I want to see Spring Hope grow and move forward like you, but we also got to make sure we protect its identity. There's a lot of current businesses in town. We have to make sure that we protect and take care of our own businesses before we start all supporting the new ones. I'm going to put together a marketing package to bring new businesses to town, sell them on while Spring Hope is the place for them to be. And hopefully within 12 years, you know, I'll get in there and do a couple terms as mayor, and then when I start getting tired, I'll build me a hotel out by 64.
All right, well, thank you all. Anyone else in the audience would like to ask a question of our candidates? You can address any candidate personally, or you can address it to the current board, but we will just give everyone the chance to talk because we want to make sure that they have equal time.
Hi, I'm Nancy Perry. I've asked this question before, but I'd like for each of you to explain how you would change the communication platform from citizens to board. Because that's, when the comments got turned off on the Facebook page, it stimulated a lot of fear, and it stimulated more animosity and more bad gossip than it would if it had been left alone. People need to be able to find you guys approachable. And the comment that was made, well, we all work, we don't always have time for this stuff. Well, granted, you all have full-time jobs. Hunky-dory. But we're out here, you guys are the decision makers, but yet you make the decisions based on what we want. I want to know what your plan will be for you to hear what we want. Because going to the town board and speaking for 3 minutes is not enough. So, what's your thoughts?
I love that town hall meeting that took place. I think that takes that governmental issue away. It drops, I think, the sort of a wall that I think is between the commissioners and the people. I love that. I think there should be one every, you got, what, 5 commissioners? I think there should be one every 2 months. So a commissioner has to sit on it, not the same one. They could alternate and come to that. And now the public's got to know that that commissioner is not going to come and make decisions and tell you I'm going to do this, that, and that, but to listen and hear what's said, and that should be taken back to the other commissioners, and then they can discuss it. And then maybe when the next meeting happens, they can bring something back to that group and be able to share with the people. I think it's gotta be in that nature of sitting around like this, talking like this, and then getting out in the community. I know these guys work, I understand that, but getting out and seeing the people and talking to them and being able to be approachable. I know they are, I know you hear them. Thank you.
Communication is two ways, it's not just one way. Right now, it kind of seems like it's one way, I know, and we're definitely going to change that when we get in there. But a communication platform is something I'm already working on. We got to communicate with people the way that they want to be communicated. I personally am so tired of texting emails. I love when I get something in my mailbox. Some of you may want mail, some of you may want text, email. We've got to get the information to you the way that you want, and it needs to be something more professional than Facebook. Then we also have to get the information back from you in the method that you want to give it back to us, and then we have to have data management processes where we can take that data, analyze it, and turn it into something useful to give you what you want. So a communication platform, you know, I learned about that when I was managing multiple hotels. It's not difficult to do, but it has to be two ways, and you just have to manage the data. Very important. Whoever asked a very important question.
Communication is definitely very important, and as all of us have stated, especially at the meet and greets we've been at, some have said even make a application on the website itself so we can get that professional communication, things that want to be addressed. And I like Tony, I'm with him on the town hall meetings. I want to be able to see the people, and it's hard for each of us to go knock on all the doors that are in town in a day so we can get feedback. So participation, having town hall meetings, and creating a system, whether it's tied in with the current website, so that we can get communication from the town on the things that need to be addressed. But yeah, communication is very important, and I would look forward to being able to serve and hear what all of y'all have to say.
I'm with Tony 100% on the town meetings. I would like to follow up on those town meetings. I would probably try to attend every one. I would like to follow up with those issues before it gets to the commissioner's office or the town hall meeting. Because sometimes it's not something that they're going to deal with. It's a police issue. It's a Nash County issue. As far as my time, I usually work Friday through Sunday. That's 4 days a week. I can be here pretty much full-time working on this. If I was working Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, I wouldn't have ran because it's not fair. It's not fair to you guys. I can do this. I can do this full-time pretty much. Tony's retired. He can do this full-time. It's time for full-time answers. Part-time solutions aren't going to fix these full-time problems.
I think you'll find with any business, any governmental agents, communication is going to be your weakest link. Doesn't matter who's doing it or what they're doing at the time. I thought one of the things that I would do when I got on the board would be to improve communications at the board meetings. But I learned that we can't address everything at a board meeting and still take care of town business. I agree, probably a town hall meeting quarterly or twice a year would probably be a good thing. I disagree with one commissioner being here. If we're going to do it, I think all commissioners that are available should be here and not just put one on the spot.
I agree with the town board meeting. I thought Buddy did a really good job of coming up with that idea. Those are good. Nancy actually gave us an idea at one of our meeting greets to establish actual town emails for the commissioners, which I think they're probably just about set up. So that is another form. Really the most important form is our staff there at Town Hall. We have a fantastic staff, and I've never known them to run anybody off for coming in to talk to them and tell them what's going on. And normally, if it's something that we can take care of or they need our help with, they call us immediately. So there is communication there. And, you know, as far as the full-time job and trying to work around that, unfortunately, that's the way it is. I think the matter, well, there it comes. So, you know, yes, I have a full-time job. Yes, I travel. I was asked why didn't I run for mayor. That's a reason. I do serve on the Downtown Development Board. I serve on obviously as a commissioner, so I spend all my time that I can in Spring Hope, and I still feel like the people can reach to me. They can always find me on my porch. People that ride by know I'm on the porch all the time. And they can reach me anytime. Everybody sits up here and come by my house and talk to me on the porch.
I stop by his house too and sit on the porch. Or ride by Drew's. But just to kind of talk about as far as the jobs, everybody knows I work from home. There's been quite a few of you who have contacted me during the day, and I've came to your homes. There are some who has came to my home and I open the door and let you in, although I do work. I also own businesses here in Spring Hope. So there are people who have stopped by my businesses. So I'm always out. People have my number. I get calls all the time from people who say, hey, I've been trying to reach you, and I tell them stop by the house. You never know who's gonna pop up at my house. I'm also walking because I'm in fitness. So people catch me out walking, they catch me a little bit of everywhere. So I think that I've been readily available to the community. If I was canvassing and I stopped by a young man's home who I found out had a tragedy. I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't been out canvassing, but that canvassing changed over when I found out someone had a tragedy and lost their legs. You want to finish my story?
I don't know the ending of it. There's been a lot of good points made up here. One point that I'll make is it's very unfortunate we had the problems that we had all at one time with the water. But one very good thing about that is it brought a lot of things to light that we need to work on. And one of those things is communication. So one of the other people answered that in whatever the organization is, communication is often the weakest link. And I think that's very true. I think the town hall meeting idea was very good. Kudos to Buddy for having that. I think that would be a good idea for us to have those on a periodic basis. Another point that Brent made, which was a very good point, is that we do have a full-time staff. We are in the process of hiring a manager. We hope to get a manager that will be very responsive to the residents and to us and be very approachable, because that will be that person's full-time job, will be managing this town. And so, you know, that is a point of communication that can be very useful. So I think it's good that we had these unfortunate things happen to bring this to light so that we can communicate better.
Thank you all. Next, public question. Let's let this lady in the back go first, and then at that point, or you go, and then. I'm sorry, I was referring to the woman in blue who stood up, not to you.
Hello, my name is Riley Himmelwright. For full clarification for the audience, I am Jason Himmelwright's son, but my question goes to everyone on the board, sitting or running for a seat. I find that one thing that is missed at the 90% of all of the meetings, whether it's debates or it's town meetings, is the next generation of Spring Hope. I am 15. I know that as soon as I get out of the house, I am going to try. And most likely, I will be buying a house in Spring Hope or within the vicinity of Spring Hope. And I would just like to know from everyone, what are your plans or something you would want to see done by the board or as sitting on the board for the next generation of the youth of Spring Hope?
Very good question, Raleigh, and I think we'd like to see input from the youth. And so I'm not going to steal Prudence's thunder, because she took some of your suggestions and she's working on some things. So I'm going to defer to her so she can kind of tell us some of the stuff that she brought to the board that we're all working on to get youth more involved.
All right, so I was able to get approval from the board, thank you guys, to start the youth council. I am working with an individual out of Orange County. She's an Orange County school board member. Orange County does have a youth council, so she is actually working with me to draft up the bylaws and how things are actually supposed to work. Your name is already on there. You were first. And that was based on you asking those questions that you asked at the buddy meeting. I thought that was absolutely awesome. You're probably going to be the next president And I'm gonna be able to say, yes, he was on my youth council, but look forward to, because the board is very excited that we're going to be able to bring this advisory board. Not only are we excited, I had a conversation with another Spring Hopian last night who also suggested, why not use the youth council to work with some of our elderly. Thank you for that idea, Ms. Denton. That was an amazing idea.
So I absolutely am 100% for the next generation, obviously. I was thinking about it, you know, when I was young, Spencer Edwards started the baseball program in Spring Hope, and I played for, he didn't coach me, but I played for John Neal and Gordon Bales. And through the years, I've had the opportunity to coach a lot. Now I coach. I've been able to coach other kids, and I've been able to coach some of Spencer Edwards' great-great-grandchildren on my teams. So it's very important to me that we pass the torch on to these youth. Now my involvement has a lot to do with Parks and Rec. Now I'm right up front, that's my first love, is the Parks and Rec side of it. You know, we tried to improve the playgrounds and stuff at the park. We'd like more parks. We're working on the Depot Park. And so I want, the youth are absolutely the future. And I've been able, fortunately, in my lifetime to see it through at least 4 generations. And I want to see it keep going through more and more generations. So that is where I'm absolutely invested.
I think without a doubt, our youth is going to be the life of this town long after many of us are gone. I would love to see the youth a little more interested in what's going on in the town. I'd like to see them come to the board meetings. I'd love to see all of y'all come to the board meetings. Until the water issue, it was just the board at the board meetings. But you need to come so that you can be involved and not just leave it up to the board, but to come and give us constructive ideas.
My big hope is 4 years from now, somebody younger and smarter calls us out and says, you know what, you could do this even better now. And then I can sit there and go, you know what, maybe it's time for me to step aside if I win. That's what I hope. We constantly improve what's going on with our town government and our town. And clean the room.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about the youth. I'm a lifetime member of the American Legion. There are programs within the American Legion that we participate in. I haven't had the opportunity to really look into a lot of things here yet because I've just gotten established, but I really look forward to engaging with the youth. I have brought my daughter to board meetings and kind of showed her what's going on, and so I'm gonna pawn her out to Prudence down there once we get that established.
Youth is obviously very important, but the most kids, 16, 17, 15, they don't want to be running a town right now. They want to be outside playing, riding a skateboard, playing video games, watching movies, hanging out with their friends. They don't want to be sitting in a city council meeting. So we have to do things to engage and entertain our kids on the level that they're on, help them network. You know, as adults, we go to Chamber of Commerce network functions, help the kids network, give them public spaces to play, give them safe environments to play and enjoy each other's company. Have the avenues like the youth council if that's the direction they wanted to go. But the first, I knocked on 2 doors that were only 2 houses apart. They had 2 doors down. We got to give them ways to network and ways to bring them together. So help them make memories. And once they make memories like that with each other in town, they'll fall in love with the town. But right now, there's nothing for them to do. So why are they going to fall in love with the town? You give them something to do, they fall in love with town, they're going to stay. It's that simple.
It's all been said. I mean, the youth are everything. We all know it. We're all parents, grandparents, some of us now. It's all about the youth. They got to be engaged. We need to know, as a grandparent now, I need to know what he's about or who he is. And they need to be engaged with this. If it's the council they're talking about, they can come to us and tell us what they think or what they want or how they can be helped in the town. I think that needs to be very important. A lot of times, as parents, we may not want to hear what they have to say, and no, that's not right. I'm the parent, you know that, but our generation now needs to be able to speak. They need to have a voice within the government, a voice that they can speak what they want or what they don't want and what's out there.
Excellent. So we scheduled this for about 90 minutes. We're at 7:24 right now, so we do have time for just a couple more questions, but we want to keep them quick. And so, ma'am, you were next, and then if there was anyone else who wanted to ask a question, if you wouldn't mind just sitting in the front row, so we can kind of have our final folks lined up.
Okay, with regard to the Facebook comments being turned off, the town manager lied on the current board. He said the board voted to turn them off, so the board will have to vote to turn them on. So you allowed your direct report to throw you under the bus. From what I've seen in the last, since June coming to these meetings, there's a lot of people under that bus. With respect to EnviroLink, the current board, I feel, from Ricky down, is hiding behind the law with EnviroLink with stuff that we're not privy to. So if the contract is yearly, I don't know how long it is, what did each of you do to strengthen that contract? So 2 years, 16 years, 4 years, 4 years, how long are the EnviroLink contracts for? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. So what has each of you done with EnviroLink?
So the last EnviroLink contract was updated in 2016,
Okay.
which was before 3 of us were here. It's a 5-year contract.
Okay.
And guess what? It's up next year.
Just in time.
So all I can tell you is wait and see.
Okay, thank you. Then the rest of you don't have to.
Yeah, I wasn't here, so I can't.
Right, so that's fine. You're not, but I do feel like there's a lot of people under that bus right now.
Would any other candidates like to respond? I know you said they don't have to, but we have to provide the opportunity for everyone to get equal time. And we do want to just go more or less in order.
I think it's pretty clear, me and Tony both, we agree, we want to get rid of EnviroLink. We want to look for ways to get out of that contract, to not renew that contract, and find an avenue so we can do maintenance and do that ourselves. So it's gonna have to be a wait and see type thing, like Brent said. It's whether we renew the contract as a board, because that's what the only option we have left. We're gonna have to address that issue when it comes up, but I would really like to see us not have a contract with EnviroLink.
Contract right now is written where they couldn't get out of it this year if they tried. They're stuck in it for another year. I don't think they even told you that, but yeah, it's gonna take time, but we'll get it back in-house.
That's actually not true. That's not true. That's not true.
What is true?
All right, let's pass the microphone down to
What is true?
Commissioner so she can speak.
He is correct that we couldn't get out of this year. 2022 is another year. It's not 1 year from now. It's 2022. That's only 4 months away. My calendar is correct.
All I can say is I have heard that it had been, I think, at 5-year intervals, and maybe I'm wrong. I think it needs to be a yearly basis then. I've heard them say that, some that say that EnviroLink needs to change. Well, if that's the case, you know, I'm open, but when a company blatantly does what they're doing to your taxpayers' money and what the board has given them, that's wrong. Period, end of story, done. And I'd give them a year, because it's gonna take time for us to do what we gotta do to be able to get the certificates and whatever we may go in the direction we may go, even if it's find somebody else, until we can get to that point. But I think it's a year, we start taking things away slowly, Give them a time to see. Maybe they can. My problem I have is when you work like they work, they're not going to change. I'm sorry. Sorry.
All right, thank you. Did anyone else who didn't get the chance to speak earlier? Seeing no one, I think this gentleman moved up toward the front, had a question, and this will be our final question of the evening.
She's been waiting.
Okay.
She also needs to get-
Okay, that's fine. Go ahead, sir.
So according to the U.S. Census data, Spring Hope in 1910 had 1,246 individuals in town. As of 2019, it is estimated that we had 1,310, a difference of only 64 people in well over 100 years. It is well noted that Nash County, and specifically the 264 and 64 corridors, is basically the last frontier as the greater Raleigh area builds out. So you may call me Paul Revere, but the British are coming. What is your vision, and this is to all candidates, what is your vision for managing and supporting growth of both residential, commercial, parks and recreation, and transportation?
Well, I've had an opportunity to talk to some realtors, 3 or 4 of them in the past month or so, just sitting down because they're the ones that know. And it's a fine line between rooftops and businesses. You know, the businesses say, I want to have the rooftops. Rooftops say, I'd like to have, you know, I'd be able to shop in places if I'm going to buy a house. So I think it's a fine line. What I've heard from the people, I think the growth, but it needs to be controlled. I'll say this right up front. I think an R8 is I feel, but what the town people have come to me and said is too many houses. But I think we need them in the same breath. I think R14 would be better. That's just my. And when I look at it, and I know what Mr. White's trying to accomplish, he's going to put a lot of money into it, make no doubt about it, especially on the 74 acres or 78 acres on 581. But even with R14, that could be 50 acres he can do because of roads and setbacks. I think he can still, you know, $2.5 million for infrastructure and all that, probably a little over it with the numbers I put on it. He can still make money. And I think we can still control that growth to where we can have these rooftops and then get the business. Thank you.
First things first.
It's off.
It's on.
First things first, we got to take care of our own before we try to take care of you. We got to figure out how to take care of our current citizens, current entrepreneurs, current business owners before we can try to keep bringing others in here. Once we figure that out, then we do have to have controlled growth. We have to make sure that all parts of town obviously have equal opportunities for each other. But we got to look at the bigger picture, right? So when you look at the bigger picture, you're going to have different types of growth come to town. You're going to have different developers come to town. And if you tell all the developers no, then they're eventually going to quit coming to town. You're going to be stuck with no developers, no business owners. But in the process of taking care of your own before you take care of the new, you'll learn what the current residents want. We'll get those businesses in here, we'll get the housing that they want, and then as that comes, as the town grows, then we'll be able to expand in that because the resident base grows. As we get those 160 homes out here, the 47 homes out here, those people are going to want something different than what the current residents want. And so we're going to have to mix and mingle, and we're going to have to take care of all of them once they get here too. And so the vision that you guys have for the town is going to change. But if you make sure with the election, you get the people in here new, that this is almost your last time to really control what happens to the town.
As much control as we could possibly manage to have, because the control is limited. We just cannot wave a magic wand and say you can have this, you can't have that. We still have to follow the law when we decide as a board who can and cannot do what they do. And we're going to have to structure the growth and try to bring both commercial, industrial, and housing together, bring it along together. Because you can't have one in without the other, and there's going to be a piece missing if you bring one further along than you bring the other. You got to bring it all up together. So we've got to find avenues in which we build that growth simultaneously between commercial, industrial, residential, and putting in place the infrastructure to manage all that.
The key is zoning, how you zone things. What's coming in based on access to highways, or do they have to come through town? It's all zoning. It really is. The other thing, as far as commercial stuff, I'd like to see the downtown area have some rules about what the places look like, what kind of condition they're kept in, things like that. Because you have some, I'm sure you have some business owners that would love to do something with their business, but the one beside them that's been ignored for 30 years and the person doesn't live in town and we can't find them. Why would they want to invest in that when the building beside them is going to fall down? Or it looks terrible. It's all about zoning, it's all about ordinances, and it's thinking ahead of time. My wife hates when I say this, but you got to be a chess player, not a checkers player. You got to think 5 or 6 moves ahead. If we do this, what happens what's the next 3 steps? You can't just jump the checkerboard in front of you with one, and take that one piece, because it's going to cost you a lot more down the road.
I think it's difficult to say what's going to happen in 12 years. I've been hearing for the last 20 or 30 years that Raleigh was going to be here by now. I think it's coming, but at what speed, I don't know. A lot of this, it's hard to plan for because you don't know how it's going to come at you and in what shape. So some of it we play catch up. I don't have a magic ball. I can't tell you what we're going to be doing 12 years from now. I hope that Town Spring Hope grows. But how it grows, I can't tell you. I don't think anybody up here can tell you how it's going to grow. And different things are going to require different methods.
So as far as control of growth, let's look at what we've already done. So we've updated the park down at Spring Oak. We've had Cardinal come in. The Downtown Development Board has now developed plans for the Downtown Depot Park. Spalding Resource Center has finally took back what rightly belongs to Spalding. And now they're going to do some great things on that side of town. And so these are happening already. All right. We've also put in place code enforcement. We've got this going on downtown. You're going to start seeing some improvements. We've already, as the Downtown Development Board, have got the 2 town-owned properties. We're waiting for a contract on those so they can finalize it. There's going to be 2 new businesses there. So the revitalization is coming. As far as the R8 homes, these R8 approved lots, they still have to come back to the planning board with the layout and the scope and the design of the homes and everything else. There's still approval process that they have to go through. So there is the control within itself. So yes, we're controlling. You could look at Bojangles, the possibility there for more residential or more commercial there.
I can say one of the things that I've been very successful with when I did go through the Advanced Leadership Program was being able to have a lot of House representatives, mayors, other town commissioners from all over North Carolina. So a lot of them I've actually been meeting. A lot of them have been calling me. I know Zebulon is one who just went through a big major growth. So their Mayor Pro Tem and I have actually been meeting for lunch, talking about a lot of things that they actually went through. So what I've been doing is kind of partnering with some government officials, including House representatives out of Raleigh, who have went through some of these things to see what was successful for them and what was not successful for them, that we can kind of mirror. Having those contacts is very, very beneficial being in a small town.
Hard to follow up all these good answers that everybody gave. Yes, zoning will be very important. Very true what Ricky said. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what that development will be like, but we know some form of development is coming. So we can continue to work with our zoning and improving the zoning to make sure we have the right kind of development. We are doing some good things like Depot Park, improving the streets and sidewalks with some grant money we get, bringing the new well back online. All those are things that will combine together as development comes, and then once those few first developments come and bring us some more tax base and some more money for our infrastructure, we can use those things to continue building on the stuff that's been mentioned, to be as prepared as we can be for development that is coming this way.
All right, thank you. Next public question.
Since I have the last question
candidates. I came here not knowing a lot about Mr. Pritchett.
We can't hear you, bro.
I came here not knowing, can you hear me now?
No.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I came here not knowing a lot about Mr. Pritchett other than the stuff that I read and I wasn't too happy about. So my question is, what are your plans for the city, for this town of Spring Hope? And what do you really bring to the table? Because you come across as intelligent and smart and a lot of contacts and such. But when I read different things that you've said, it makes me wonder, like, well, why would I vote for him? Because he doesn't seem like he's for the little people. And you say you have big ideas for the city. Big ideas take money. If we don't have money to fix water, why should I vote for you? And then I like to ask Prudence the same.
Sure. We'll let the mayoral candidates go first. You have the microphone, Commissioner, if you want to start.
I actually think that's a great question, Ms. Battle. But as a lot of people know, what I actually bring to Spring Hope, I've been in Spring Hope for a while. A lot of the events that happen in Spring Hope has happened with my team. I have about 20 of them wrote down here that my team has done in Spring Hope since we've been here, especially the senior prom that we did for the Southern Nash High School seniors. So that wasn't going to get one. So revitalization is important. Not only does my team offer business classes, because we don't have that here. So people who want to take entrepreneur type classes to open up a business, my team offers that. I am out in the community. I'm speaking with people in this community. I have the contacts that I just call them. I was actually able to bring a celebrity here to a small town who actually thought about moving here in August because he was actually impressed with this town. So I bring a lot of knowledge, a lot of wealth. I have been serving on boards for quite a while.
Let Mr. Pritchard go next, and then we'll pass the mic back around if any of the commissioner candidates want to respond.
I've had a lot of success in life. I thank God for that. I've been very fortunate, and I know that sometimes I can seem very arrogant. I got a big house, a nice car, and I've said some things that I do regret. And I think what speaks for itself the most is that I've gone out into the community and I've really talked to people. And I think that a lot of people really got to know me. I believe that the newspaper in the past, both the Enterprise and the Southern Nash News, they have to sell newspapers. They have to make it sensational. It has to be interesting to read. So if you go back, some of that stuff's not in quotes. Some of it is actually just ad-lib that makes the article fun to read. If you ever have read anything and you have a specific question about what parts of that I did or did not say, I'll be glad to answer those. But yes, I'm first person that has not sinned, cast a stone. But what I can say about what I want to do for the town is first, we got to listen to people, that open communication. We got to take care of our own before we can take care of the new. I know I keep saying that. But we've got to have youth programs. Spring Hope's an aging town, so we have to have senior programs. Website's got the rest of the platform.
You can pass the mic around.
I apologize if I've ever offended you. I apologize.
Okay. We have time if you'd like to ask questions, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
Question is for both candidates. How can we, with the youth, the African American youth here, my issue is with the police. Far as like growth in the city for businesses and stuff. I went to the meeting and they stopped 276 people in 1 month in this small town. I think that's kind of like facetious. So both candidates, what can we do to like calm the police down and make businesses want to come to Spring Hope? So that's my question for both candidates.
Okay. I can say that I do get a lot of those complaints. I have people who stop by my home, people who stop by the business. I do get a lot of those complaints. Every complaint that is provided to me, I am contacting Chief Gann and talking to Chief Gann about that. I know there was a meeting that Chief Gann and I bumped heads a little bit, but we have been very instrumental in trying to make sure that the African American community, as well as everybody, are being treated fairly. So those are conversations that we are having. And as you guys are continuously bringing those to me, I am taking those to Chief Gann and letting him know what I'm hearing from the African American community.
Data management, we gotta know the facts. We simply need to know more details about the stops, what they include, and we actually need to see the whole picture. But it goes a little bit deeper than that. It's not necessarily just the police, it's the town. So if you look at it as a whole, this entrepreneur over here is not getting afforded the same opportunities this entrepreneur is. And so if this entrepreneur was given those opportunities and they started this business, business did well, customers came, then they would get looked at differently by the police. And so we have to afford them the opportunity to do the same things that the other parts of town are doing before the police are going to look at them the same. And I know that that's a sad fact, but that is a sad fact. And so all entrepreneurs need to have the opportunity no matter what part of town that they're in. So yes, it's a problem. We have to have data management, and we have to let them start the businesses and like he was saying, start the businesses that they're looking to start, and then that will follow.
Any of the commissioner candidates like to weigh in on traffic stops, police enforcement, businesses?
I'd like to make a comment. Because I think I'm the only one up here that's a law enforcement officer. I've been a police officer for 46 years. I've been a former chief of police, town of Bailey. I have my issues with the police department. I'd like to see one a little more professional than what it is. But as far as traffic stops and how police handle things, I can tell you, police officers reactive. If you're not doing anything to draw his or her attention, they probably don't mess with you. That has been my experience for 46 years.
Any other comments? Anyone else like to respond to that question? Hearing none. Any other questions from the audience? Have time for one more. And I think it's fitting that I see Ken Ripley with his hand up.
Do you have me the microphone?
Yes, sir.
Y'all have mentioned, yeah, okay. Y'all have mentioned several times the R8 rezoning, but the fact is that the 74 acres that were rezoned in the agricultural district was rezoned illegally in violation of the town's own zoning ordinance, not land use plan, zoning ordinance. So I'd like to know if you want me to have confidence in your appreciation of zoning, how you plan to fix that. That is poison fruit, subject to lawsuits if they don't fix it. So if you are elected, how would you manage to correct that error in rezoning? It should have been R15 according to the ordinance.
Is that to me?
Huh? To all of you.
Let's. Who has the microphone? Let's just try to go down.
I got it down here. Ken, you were very instrumental in a lot of the zoning ordinances that were written for the updated ones that we have now. Maybe you could refresh my memory. How tall is that? How thick is that book? Pretty big book of ordinances. Yeah. So, I guess I have to be careful what we can say as a board member about this situation you mentioned. I can say that we are aware that a mistake was made. Or maybe I should just let Mark. Sometimes mistakes are made. I'm going to defer that specific question, but everybody is human, and sometimes mistakes are made. And when any mistake is brought to light, then I think whoever may wind up being this future board will do everything that is ethical to make sure any mistake that is made is rectified in the proper manner.
Time?
I can only pass down because I'm in the same boat as him. I can't address it at this particular point due to legalities.
Ma'am, you'll have to go to the podium after everyone has had a chance to answer Ken's question.
So, I kind of step on what Drew said, and I'm watching Mark in the background to make sure I don't. He's saying go ahead and expand, and we can expand. So, if a mistake is made, I can assure you it's being discussed, and I can assure you that the process has already been started to rectify that mistake. It started on Tuesday morning, and it has been looked into in detail. And kind of piggyback on what Drew said, we absolutely appreciate the hard work that you always put into making sure, and we sure don't mind for the teacher to slap our wrists if we make a mistake. So it is being rectified.
As a current board member, I have to go with them. It's something that was brought to our attention, and we're working on it. There's really nothing else we can say at this point.
I'll ask Mark a question. Mark, was that videotaped that night?
Yes.
If you go back and watch that video, you'll get the same impression I did. That they came in there, and I think it's the same problem. It's part-time people working on full-time problems. I really don't think they had 100% knowledge of what they were even voting on that night. If you watch the video, maybe I'm wrong. If you watch the video, you'll come up with probably the same impression I did. And I feel like there's a lot of things like that. I wonder how much homework is done before they go in and vote on things. They do have full-time jobs. There's nothing wrong with that. But the town's starting to grow. And like I said, that's why I'm running. I can do this pretty much full-time. I can look at this. If I couldn't, I wouldn't run. I think that's what a lot of the issues are. It's come to a board meeting once a month, looking at stuff real quick while it's put in front of you, and you vote on it. It doesn't work, and more mistakes like that are going to happen.
Can I interject with that really quickly? We are provided with our board packets before then, so we don't get board packets the day of, and we just go in there and pull them out and read. We have our packets days before, and we review those packages and look at those packages. A lot of us that are on the current board, when we come in, we have notes because we are actually reading these packages, so we are not part-timers. There's a lot of time that I'm on the phone with Drew. I'm on the phone with Brent. So we are actually talking. There's times they may be on the phone with Ricky. We are actually talking. So we're not part-timers.
All right, that's 30 seconds. We're going to have to cut it off there because if we get into a whole lot of back and forth, then this lady won't be able to ask her question. So please, go ahead.
Yeah, and I agree some mistakes were made. And it was tough when I read your article, which was a good article. I enjoyed the read. I went back and I looked at the town ordinances to see where you was coming from. It wasn't real clear what was posted online. So apparently all the ordinances aren't necessarily online for access. There are other things that are buried that unless I were to go to town hall and ask for that stack of books, I wouldn't know. And I would venture to say that that's probably where the current board sits on that, because they probably weren't aware of that being the case. And I can see that mistake easily happening. But whoever ends up in office, we're going to continue to make sure that that mistake is rectified and that we try our best, we're only human, to avoid those types of mistakes in the future.
Kind of touching on it, but something I think is very important. The current board has too much power right now. They've got their hands in all the other boards, whether it's themselves sitting on their board, and then when Jay was in office, he basically took over the Board of Adjustment so that the current Board of Commissioners is the Board of Adjustment. And so we need to make sure that we separate those responsibilities back out, mainly for the ideas and for the fairness of everyone. So they're too involved with the other boards.
I thank Mr. Ripley for bringing that forward. My question is, I'm the one that made the statement about an R14, because I think R8s are not right. You said it has to be an R15? Is that a correct statement?
Well, that's the only zone available for it.
Okay.
R8 is prohibited in any new zones.
Okay, understandable. See, my reason for thinking of R14 is I was just trying to think about, help Mr. White out, to be honest with you. You know, he loses in every, 21 acres, he loses an acre. Because in R15, 45,000 square feet, he loses a little bit. And that's my point of trying to say an R14, so he would have 3 houses per acre. That's my whole point there. So,
R14 does not exist.
okay, I understand. I didn't know if it's something you could bring up and do and put into ordinances or not. But that was my reason for that. But thank you for that.
All right, we have our last question of the evening.
If you guys started working on it Tuesday, did I understand you correctly? Did you start working on it Tuesday to rectify it? I just want to understand what happened on Tuesday. Somebody. Y'all are on the board, you said it.
We started it, I was looking for the microphone. We started on it Monday night.
Okay.
And obviously some of the details legally we can't talk about, but I can tell you,
Gotcha.
the process was started to rectify the issue based on our discussion on Monday night in closed session. The process was started first thing Tuesday morning with business open.
Okay. Well, he brought it up months ago. Didn't you, Ken? The article that you wrote?
Yeah, better late than never.
Okay, so they knew, that bus again, you know, it's getting pretty full underneath that bus.
As soon as it was brought to our attention as a board, it was addressed.
When it was brought to the board meeting, we addressed it.
So you weren't listening to Ken when he wrote that great article?
No,
Don't bring you in it? Okay, Ken, you're out of it. I can put 2 and 2 together. I'm pretty good at math. So Ken wrote an article. Don't laugh at me. Don't insult me. Ken wrote the article, so you didn't listen to the news, to Ken's article, and you did nothing.
All right, we have to close it off there. Would anyone like to respond to that question, to that statement?
I think there was somebody else with a follow-up question, if she was allowed to, or I think we'll allow one more.
Yeah.
Did anyone else want to ask a question? Go ahead, don't be shy. Let's come up to the podium. No?
Ms. Denton, did you have another question?
And would you mind, I just want to know, on the violent stuff, I would like to say that I don't think there's anyone in town that's had any more problems with the water and the medical bills that I've had with my body because of the water. Now, my stance is, environmentally, I live right there on Walnut Street. I see them going up and down without belts and the safety. And working in government myself for 22 years, it's a thing called OSHA. And some seem to think that if you do call OSHA, the town's gonna get sued too, and that's a possibility. Some people don't believe that, but it is a possibility. My thing is, my understanding is that the town of Spring Hope, if we lose the barreling, and it's right behind my house, and it's a junk hole, but if we lose it, my understanding is that the town sold the barreling, the equipment and stuff, gave it to them. What's gonna happen when they do leave? We're gonna have to buy new equipment. So that is something that should be addressed, because we don't have money to fix the water. It's gonna cost me over $10,000 for the water filtration in my home. I don't even know yet, which now I will say Town Hall, Michelle and Sandra, everybody up there has been very, very helpful. Mr. Lamb is taking water, samples of my water, sending it to the state. We're trying to find out what type of bacteria it is. I'm a person that's allergic to everything. I'm allergic to sulfur. And we got the well that I think that I'm running off on that's got a high contents of sulfate, which goes into sulfur. Well, I can't blame the town or the water for that, for my being allergic to. But what I wanted to know, and I got the report, Town Hall gave me the report of that water. And the only 3 things that were in there was iron and sulfate and something else. I forgot what it was.
Okay, ma'am, I'm gonna give you 30 more seconds, and we need something with a question mark at the end of it, okay?
What are we gonna do about the fact if we lose the power lane, about how we're gonna run this town and the equipment? And that's the everybody.
So that decision that was made to go into that contract originally with EnviroLink was the best decision at that time. We all know the old thing that hindsight's 20/20. Maybe now we're looking back, it might not have been, maybe it wasn't the best, maybe it was. There are changes that need to be made. Yes, for us to go back into the business of running the public works and the garbage and all those things will be very expensive. But at the time that we made that decision, that equipment that we got rid of basically all needed replacing, and it was going to already cost us a tremendous amount of money to stay in that business. And we were having a hard time getting the right employees and keeping the certificates. And I can tell you that when EnviroLink took this water and sewer system over, it was in a shambles from the way it had been run and managed prior to them taking it over. Now, I'm not taking up for EnviroLink, but I'm just saying there are a lot of things involved behind that decision to hire them and to keep them that have to be taken into consideration.
You got the little bump, didn't you?
Yeah, I got buzzed.
I think that as a board, whether it be the current board or a new board, we have to kind of look at what's going to be beneficial for the town. So we have to do a cost analysis. We have to do a SWOT. We have to kind of determine how much everything is going to actually cost. Can we replace maybe the mowing and purchase mowers that will be more feasible, maybe doing one thing at a time, but we are really going to have to do that cost analysis to see if the town can feasibly afford that without assessing you guys with that cost.
So just some of the things that run through my mind, and I won't say that we've discussed this as a board or anything, this is through Brent's mind. You know, you look at, there are other contractors that cut grass. There are other contractors that pick up leaf and limb. There's other municipalities and townships across the state that have shared access to an engineer with all these certifications for the wastewater. So these are all avenues that, to answer your question, that we can explore. I can't say if we are or not, but that we can explore to be able to combine services with other townships as far as their certifications go, because that's an expensive person, right? As far as buying all new equipment, maybe that's something we work toward. Do we buy it? Do we lease it? You know, what's the most cost effective? Do we contract with somebody else that just specializes in grass cutting, or that just specializes in lawn and leaf pickup? You know, kind of like we do with GFL with garbage pickup. That's something different. So all those are the avenues that we can look at to be able to resolve EnviroLink. And we give them their shot to come back as well.
There's really not a lot I can say. They have pretty much answered that question. The only thing I will say, and I think you alluded to it, we have to tread lightly in dealing with this. We inherited it, and we're gonna have to tread lightly in trying to fix it.
I guess that old adage of you get what you pay for comes back. When it comes to government, a pet peeve of mine is it's hard for me to deal with when you want to blame what happened before you came on what's going on now. It doesn't do anything. It's just an excuse. It doesn't solve anything. It's time to get your hands dirty. We really need to start working on this, and not when it's election time. It needs to be jumped on immediately, not once every 4 years when it's, you're trying to get back in office. We need to jump on it immediately.
Y'all remember Johnny Cash, right? One piece at a time. That's what it's gonna take. We're gonna eventually have that whole Cadillac if we get it one piece at a time. We're gonna have to source the equipment, source the employee. It's to be one piece at a time. And I think Ricky said earlier tonight, it's not an overnight. The problem didn't occur overnight, and the solution is going to take place overnight. It's going to take a strategic effort when we do get those pieces and put them in place. Is which piece do we get first and put it here? Which piece is next? And we build on those pieces so we eventually have the town system with the infrastructure support that we need. So, one piece at a time.
I want to thank Brent for his thought process on going with other small towns. That's thinking outside the box, and that's what we need to do. One thing we can't do, yes, I know I made the statement that EnviroLink had to go. I've been in the construction business 40 years. I know that can't happen overnight. I don't you want to think I do think that. But one thing I know we can't do is we can't be held hostage by them. We can't let a contractor, subcontractor us do as they please when they want. And I can tell you that. And so I understand the tread lightly. I understand all these things, but there's lease to buy equipment. I mean, there's so many other options that we can look at and go to and research to get that. But I'll say it again, I love what Brent said with looking to other towns and partnering with them with certificates. That's thinking outside the box. I think that's what we have to do to get where we need to be.
All right, and Connie, you didn't want to respond?
I turned it off.
Yeah, it's not always about what you know. It's about knowing what you do and what you don't know, accepting what you don't know. And if you're not knowledgeable on something, then you surround yourselves with the people that are knowledgeable. And so that's why I'm voting for Tony.
All right, well, we want to thank all of our candidates for Spring Hope Mayor and Board of Commissioners, and thank all of our folks who came out to participate and ask questions this evening. We had a really good-spirited exchange, and I feel like I know a lot more about the issues here. We're not doing closing comments, but I'm sure anyone who'd like to speak to the candidates after the event can approach them. All right, thank you all.
Thank you all for
Appreciate it.